in Beverly Hills is a game, and I make the rules. I'm not the richest girl in Beverly Hills, but I am the luckiest. People try to figure me out, but I'm one of a kind.
I finally found my voice, and I'm not afraid to use it.
Having it all is easy if you're willing to work for it.
Diamonds aren't a girl's best friend. Freedom is.
Hello and welcome to Content Sluts.
Sluts.
Yes, this show where two sluts for content sit around and discuss content because there aren't enough podcasts in the world. That's our cat Rose making her first annoying appearance within the first 20 seconds. Here on Content Sluts, we come to you here on Austin Zach 00. First new show in 2022, Yeet Yeet. I, as always, am Zach Roberts, joined here with fellow content slut and life partner Taylor Elizabeth Nelson. How are you doing?
Hey y'all, I'm doing great.
First episode's maybe a little rough, but we'll get into our swing of things here. You know, I'm used to doing MoTAFE, used to having that kind of. And Taylor has already said she's gonna be a rusty one. I'm gonna have to get rid of this cat. Had to get rid of that cat. She's back out on the streets. We'll never see her again.
Ever.
Nice. What's our qualifications? We're theater students, performing arts people.
I'm entering my last quarter of my Master's of Performing Arts degree, so I think I'm able to critique a reality TV show or such content as such.
Such content as such.
Yes.
For sure. Definitely got the qualifications for that. I mean, I think besides making like 600 YouTube videos, I think that's like the main one. But also just an unbelievable amount of content that I consume. So at least, having some sort of... Oh, and collected. Yeah, I've got an extensive... DVD/Blu-ray collection for sure. I don't know. I think we definitely have, and just the simple fact that we watch a lot of content gives us enough qualifications to compare it to other shit. Anyway, so for our first inaugural episode of Content Sluts, we'll be discussing the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Of course, the great Bravo reality show. Now, a long time ago, I had watched the Real Housewives of Atlanta, like back in 2014 or whatever, and really enjoyed that. Didn't branch out into any of the other franchises at the time. By the time I ran out of interest in the other one, I certainly wasn't going to just decide to pick another one. What was your background with the Housewives?
With the Housewives, I had seen clips, but I hadn't watched Housewives until you had me watch Real Housewives of Atlanta.
Yeah.
And then I was introduced to everyone for the first time, and it was all too much, but we loved it.
Oh yeah, Atlanta definitely has the craziest characters. I think, and the reason I chose that one, I think originally it was just because of all the memes of seeing Nene and all the reaction gifs and that kind of stuff. I was like, I'll see, who's that lady? I'll see which season she's on or show she's on. And Real Housewives of Atlanta definitely brings the drama right from the start with all those absolutely crazy characters. Something that I did think this one was kind of lacking on. I mean, they got good characters on Beverly Hills, but I don't know. What do you think?
What do I think? I think that the characters on Atlanta, Real Housewives of Atlanta, off the bat were much more of a well-rounded character. They had interests. They had so much going on that was out of this world, out there. What was her name? Kim Zolciak?
Yeah.
Kim Zolciak in particular. I mean, with the singing career, it just gave us so much to look forward to each episode. Each episode had a heated argument or some drama of some kind.
Right.
And, relationships and scenarios that could build over the season and arc, of course. But, yeah, I still love Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, but I do think Atlanta kind of smacked you right when you began the season into loving them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was certainly, every time that we would, once we decided to watch it, we were out of other show. I don't even remember what we watched right before this, but once we were out of that show, And we were kind of at that place where you're lost for content. And I'm like, oh, well, let's try a new Housewives. And Beverly Hills was the choice. I chose that one because of Kyle Richards, having seen her in Halloween Kills and then finding that she was a housewife. That was what drew me to choose that one. But as soon as it started, there was I knew we were, as soon as it started and I saw some of the girls, I recognized them from memes, especially Taylor and the meme that, is her yelling at a cat. That's one of the most famous memes. I don't know. It took me a while as we were watching it. There would be times when I'm like, oh, well, I guess I'll turn it on because, I guess that's what we're watching. But I've easily could have dropped off before we got to the good stuff. It just kind of starts out, it really introduces the characters well in retrospect, and fleshes out, the sort of coming arcs. But I felt I definitely could give or take a lot of the early episodes, because it had to really build to that point. To the Dinner Party from Hell episode, which I think definitely was the best episode of the first season. Absolutely hilarious, totally iconic.
I think where it really began being hilarious. What was the redheaded psychic's name?
Allison.
Allison. I think it all really started when Allison said to Kyle Richards, "He will never fulfill you emotionally." That.
About her husband. Yeah, they had a damn psychic medium there who, of course,
was off the clock
and is probably just a damn paid actor. But she was there to cause us some drama and decided to tell Kyle that, as a psychic medium, she knows for a fact that her husband is not going to fulfill her ever.
If my husband ever leaves me, I'm going with him.
He will never emotionally fulfill you, ever. Know that. As soon as the kids are bigger, you'll have nothing in common.
And just so many great fights popped off from that moment. Taylor sitting there and being like, okay, you need to stand up and say stop. You need to stand up and say stop. And then finally she finds her voice and jumps up and she's like, enough! Enough!
You need to stand up and say stop. You need to stand up and say stop. Why do you stand up and say stop? I can't stop you. Enough.
Truly, just some iconic moments.
I think when Kyle is introduced to new women of any kind, she kind of turns into a mean girl.
Oh, for sure.
She can hold her own with the main cast of the show, but when it's a new girl, she is a mean girl all the way, and she turned that on. She was pressing on Allison. I think she was pressing on Allison, and that's why it kind of happened. It didn't just come out of nowhere.
Well, and they were already, Allison being Camille Grammer's friend already set them up to be adversaries, because Kyle and Camille had barely made up by the time of this dinner party. They had barely made up from their whole kerfuffle earlier in the season. Kyle made an offhand remark about Camille going on vacation to Hawaii without Kelsey, her husband, Kelsey Grammer of, Frasier and Cheers. I just still can't believe that, he is that rich and had that much... Camille was shitting herself every time she was talking about her husband.
Oh, God.
And all Kyle said was oh, you're flying there without Kelsey. And somehow Camille construed that into, why would anybody want to go to Hawaii with you if Kelsey's not going? And so she's all butthurt about this.
I honestly meant, is your husband meeting you for your spring break? I swear to you, my hand to God, that's what I meant. And
well, what you said was, I don't understand why they would...
heard that. You heard that. I never said that, Camille. On my hand to God.
Kyle says to somebody else, well, the only reason she heard that is because she must be insecure. That starts this whole other blow up. It's just this true multiple misunderstandings, and it all comes to a beautiful head at this Dinner Party from Hell. Very aptly titled episode, I would say.
And right before this happened with Camille and Kyle, the episode prior, she's kissing her, what is his name? Her friend?
Oh, yeah.
On the lips and everything else. So as the viewer, we're sitting here oh, is she taking this guy to Hawaii? But, no, she was just going with her kids. But, yeah, Kyle never said that from what we saw as the viewer, but it got misconstrued somewhere. But also, Camille just has a stick up her ass about her husband. She thinks nobody wants to talk to her unless it's about her husband. She really can't separate her identity. So I think there's an identity thing with Camille, for sure.
Honest to God, I was glad when they got divorced. I mean, sorry, but like Jesus. I mean, Kelsey Grammer is not, not all that in a bag of chips. Jesus Christ, I felt like I was living on some alien planet where she was like dating this A-list actor. It's fucking Kelsey Grammer. It's Kelsey Grammer. Like, let's lower our expectations here, Camille.
Yeah, I mean, every other talking head, what are those called? Talking head interview. She would be like, I don't know, just side-eye about what anybody has said. Oh, I want to see Kelsey Grammer. Oh, or, she would say things like that, and nobody said anything.
And she'd be like, women are always so jealous of me. And, like, her personal friends, like Dee Dee and, Allison, the medium, would back her up and be like, yeah, you've always had problems with women. Like, so she's the common denominator there, not anybody else.
Right.
Yeah, thank God they got divorced. Usually wouldn't say that, but this show makes you root against the husbands pretty often, actually.
Very often. Season
1, yeah, that's like the best part. And by that point, I remember as we were watching the episode Dinner Party from Hell, I'm like, this was why we started watching. Like, I'm like, this was the payoff for all those, I think that's like episode 10 at that point. So that's like 10 hours of content to get to like a really good scene. But at that point, I was sold. I'm like, I'm here for the long haul on this one, at least with this cast. Now, by the time, they start switching everybody out, I might lose interest. That's like, I think the Real Housewives, like, I like that the cast can change, but when you get attached to a certain storyline and then those people are gone, it starts to feel like a different show altogether. So who knows, I'm not saying I can watch all the way to the end, but so far they've got me hooked. So by the time I guess we should also mention, there wasn't much drama with Lisa Vanderpump in the first season, but she definitely was definitely a big star of that first season there too. Right off the bat had, just an iconic personality, and being British definitely made her pretty quirky.
Yeah, I think Lisa's one of my favorite characters for sure. Her pencil skirt or her tight dress, it's always the same fit. Yeah, she's definitely British. She loves her tea with Ken. She loves Jiggy, her puppy. She takes it everywhere and she lets it drink out of the glasses, which offends Adrian. So,
yeah.
The more you say about Adrian, the less you really like her, because we're growing to not like Adrian much. Adrian and Paul.
Yeah, I mean, I grew to like Paul more than I liked Adrian, actually. Like, Paul has said a lot of funny things. And it's interesting to me to get more, it's like weird because I know Paul from Botched.
If you let one of these doctors touch your nose now, this will turn black and then die and fall off.
That I had no idea that he was going to be on Real Housewives. I didn't know he was even anything other than the surgeon from Botched. So it was interesting to get like this other, perspective of him. And, by the end of it all, I guess like most of the things that I'm thinking of are from season 3, which we're not discussing. But by the time, we get to start disliking Adrian, I've actually grown to like Paul more because he's been a little more entertaining. And Adrian has just this really like kind of stuck up personality and doesn't really do much. I mean, doesn't really provide that much to the show.
No, I wouldn't say she provides that much to the show. She's done a couple things here or there, but she really can't take a joke.
No, she can't. And I guess for the longest time, like, her role, there was like, they would show us all the drama between like Camille, Kyle, Kim. Kyle and Kim are as sisters always are having drama, and then there would always be like those four fighting, discourse between those four, and then Lisa and Adrian in the first season were kind of like the straight men, the adults, and they would kind of be there to comment and be like, girls, really, like, we're too classy for this, whatever.
You could argue she still is that person because I don't think she's gotten involved in anything where she's lost her cool even. Do you think?
No, but I mean, now with the whole, the drama at the season 2 reunion where, they're talking about she's in a fight with Lisa at the start of season 3.
True. Yes, but never to anyone's face. It's never something good for the viewer. It's something that has happened that hasn't been resolved yet, and things like that. But yeah, she won't let herself lose her cool and lose her, totally scripted talking head moments. It has to be. I mean, even at her own event, she had to read off of the paper.
Right? Yeah, her
she
fashion
just can't
show.
be genuine.
Yeah.
It has to be perfect. And she's a Virgo. I get it. We're both Virgos.
Right.
But yeah, she's not up there with her fashion.
No, she definitely. I mean, you've said it multiple times. She's definitely cheugy.
She is cheugy.
Even when they first showed their house, like, yeah, it's a beautiful mansion, but it's like Art Deco, like Olive Garden style. Like, it's ugly decorations and like nasty like tan wallpaper.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And all the grapes and the
she's
oil. And
got a big, like, nasty, ugly necklace with her big maloof hoofs and ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh.
It's too much, and the patterns, and it's just the worst, like, aesthetic, I think, for interior design and for.
Oh yeah. I mean,
fashion.
more power to her for being, she keeps her finances separate from Paul, and she made her own money running her businesses. I mean, of course, they're all nepotism businesses from her
games, but it's fine.
from her family. I mean, her dad laid all the groundwork, but I mean, she used the resources that she had to make herself be one of the richest housewives. So I mean, more on her for that, but she's very bland. But by the time you get to season 2, there's like one person we really haven't discussed, and that's really Taylor Armstrong and her husband Russell, who from the very beginning, gave off weird vibes, controlling and just psycho vibes.
Definitely a psycho vibe there. Just dead in the eyes. Doesn't really express with his face much or with his voice. Mm-mm. Or really with anything. I mean, he didn't want to be at the white party, the first white party that we saw everyone at, which is Kyle's annual party she hosts at her house for an unknown reason. Mm-hmm. It's not for a charity, it's not for this. It's just to dress up in white and to really go all out with the white decor and do the shopping trip for that. But yeah, from there, it's kind of like he just doesn't want to be there. He calls the shots when, Taylor leaves.
Right. He's a very controlling man. And as we were watching, I didn't want to have any spoilers, but I didn't think I would get any spoilers by looking at the, I was looking at the cast on Wikipedia just to see how long, each person was there for, who left after season 1, that kind of stuff. And I just happened to click on Taylor Armstrong's page, and it said, spouse Russell, deceased 2011. And I went, oh my God, holy shit, this motherfucker's dead. And then I looked further into it, and I'm like, oh my God, this motherfucker commits suicide? And I keep reading, and I'm like, for doing what now? For domestic abuse, domestic and emotional abuse, and all this other, criminal fraud that he was going through, and truly blew my mind. And for a few days, I didn't mention anything about it because I'm like, well, I felt like I spoiled it for myself. I didn't want to spoil it for you. But eventually, I decided I'm gonna go ahead and spoil it, and I'm glad I did because it really deepened the understanding and appreciation of a lot of scenes. Because unfortunately, they really include a lot of uncomfortable stuff related to her and her domestic situation, I think.
Yeah, and I feel like as soon as you told me, we looked at Taylor and heard everything Taylor said under a very specific microscope, and we're like, oh my God, that totally correlates. That has to correlate.
And a lot of the times it did. And
it did.
When they're at Dana's game night, I hate Dana. By the way.
We hate Dana, and we hate her floors.
Dana is somebody's friend, one of the friends of the Housewives. I think it's Camille's friend, maybe. And she is one of these gaudy bitches who's, probably barely rich, and she's like going around explaining how much everything costs. Like, all of the girls on the show are like, that's really tacky.
But she doesn't even have a chair at her game night.
Yes, she
does. Had no chairs for anyone.
All of this mismatched furniture, and it
they
looks so
were in
nasty.
A waiting room. And, they were having drinks waiting on everyone to show up. Just go to the main area. Do we have to wait on everyone to show up with no chairs
right.
in this random room? I don't know. She had to show everyone her house, but...
And they had, the worst looking desserts and snacks to choose. Horrible party.
Right.
And it turned into this huge fight, of course, because They break up into teams, and Brandy, who at the time was only a friend, not an official housewife, Brandy Glanville, was put on a team with Kyle and Kim Richards, who, you know, none of them really got along. In fact, Brandy and Kim were basically already adversaries right from the start. And at that party, both of the Richards women were being completely awful to Brandy. God's honest truth. They were
being horrible. From the beginning, Kim was like, I don't want her on my team.
Right in front of her.
And, you know, Kim had been to the bathroom 15 times. Right when she got in the party, she went to the bathroom.
Which she was already, like, late, you know.
Yeah, she was already late. Went to the bathroom, made everyone wait on her. And by the way, Dana's Taylor's friend.
Oh, that makes sense.
Dana's Taylor's friend. So if that clears it up. And then from the beginning, they were being mean girls, gossiping about her, laughing about her from across the room. And then the way they played the game, I think, was the cruelest thing they did.
Yeah, they were playing charades, or, like, not really charades, but more like password.
Guess it.
Yeah, $1 million password. And they, every clue, if it was some sort of pop culture clue, they'd be like, oh, this is the guy I dated in 1963. And she'd be like, oh, Clint Eastwood, you know, or whatever the answer was. Something that Brandy could never answer. Oh, this is the movie I saw on my third date with Tom. Oh, Forrest Gump. Like, something Brandy could never answer that.
Ever.
They weren't even trying to include her.
Oh, okay, we were invited to a party last week with him. It was his birthday, and I didn't go.
God, I know that one.
And the last one.
And then, you know, Kyle says something like, okay, next game we're going to do an IQ test. Brandy, you're first. Like, it just bitchy, like, catty, like, they're the ones that really initiated this. And, of course, you know, Brandy's not without fault. She pops off.
Your sister is wasted out of her mind.
You watch your step. Watch your mouth. You are what?
And, you know, Dana wants to be friends with Kyle and Kim so bad. And I forget what she was saying, but she said something about Brandy in front of everyone. She's like, I don't like it. I don't like... What did she say?
Because Brandy said something. Brandy was like, you're being a bitch to Kyle. Like, that's where it really popped off. And she was. And Dana's like, did you just say my friend Kyle is a bitch? Because she is not a bitch. Like, and it was just so cringe the way she said, my friend Kyle.
Did you really say that my friend Kyle's a bitch? Because she's not a bitch.
And so, at this event, you know, this whole fight between the Richards and Brandy gets really heated to the point where they start swinging at each other, you know, slap fighting. And then that's when Taylor steps in, you know, the victim of domestic abuse, and she breaks it up and she says, stop, enough. And then, like, through tears is like, no one is going to lay a hand on each other in this house.
Listen, no, stop it! Enough! Okay, enough. No one is touching anyone in this house. No one is touching anyone. There will be no touching. No one is hurting anyone in this house. No one is gonna lay a finger on each other. I will not have it. I will not have that.
I mean, you can't misconstrue that.
You can't.
I mean, she was triggered by the abuse. She can't say anything at home, but she can certainly say something here. Every scene like that is completely visible in a new light when you hear what she says. Like the scene where they're all, I don't even remember where they were, but they're all sleeping together at some house, and Taylor goes and gets drunk, hides in Kim's suitcase, and is like, I don't want to go home. You know, all the girls, I'll say, one of the things that really made me the most uncomfortable watching it, but again, I'll say, riveting television. Season 2 was absolutely riveting, watching this whole thing unfold. But what really made me uncomfortable is just how all of the women handled the situation, because they, you know, are talking about how Taylor's been telling them in private that she's being abused and then not actually, like, doing anything about it. And I'm like, has the world just learned that much about domestic abuse in the last 12 years? Or, like, why are they so bad at supporting her through this?
They would get, like, so angry with Taylor for, you know, trying to have a good day, or trying to say a nice thing about Russell, or going to therapy with Russell, marriage counseling, or what have you. They'd be so annoyed. Why is she standing by his side? Why is she not leaving him? And then just getting mad at her, and she needs a friend during this time. It was obvious she needed friends desperately during this time, but the way they handled it was despicable, really, and they made it worse for her. They were the reason she was probably assaulted a couple of times, because they would bring it up to Russell. They would
like directly to his fucking face.
Yes.
One of the greatest. I mean, I was literally standing up watching it because I was so invested. And of course, I was holding in a shit, but I was I was really invested in the scene. And it's the second annual white party. Well, it's not the second white party, but the second on the show. And there's this whole thing where, at this point, Russell has sent an email to Camille threatening to sue her for saying that Russell beats Taylor, even though that's what Taylor told Camille.
Camille had a whole monologue. We don't say that he threw you in the bath. We don't say that he broke your jaw. We don't say that he hits you, but now we do. And all the girls were just shocked.
We said it.
Because we don't say that he hit you. Because we don't say that he broke your jaw. Or that he
Threw you in the
beat
ball,
you up.
or
And he hit you. We don't say that, but now we said it. Okay? We're supposed to walk around going, yeah, we can't wait to see Russell.
Can't wait to see
But
him.
we don't know if it's true
And then
because you come over and you don't have any signs of physical abuse on your body.
So then there was this big, huge thing where Taylor was saying, oh, well, she overdid what I said? What's the
She
word?
was
Exaggerating what she said. And then Russell's like, no, that was just a bold-faced lie. And she's just sitting there in the car and it's so uncomfortable to watch.
Because it's not a bold-faced lie,
not.
Russell. It's probably not even exaggerated, but what are you supposed to say? And I actually think that was the last time we saw Russell. They went inside after they got home. They turned him away, and they said, you're not welcome at this party because, we're not going to get sued for speaking the truth, and it was actually a sad scene all around because one, almost positive Taylor went home and got the snot beat out of her. I mean, just the way the whole scene was set up, it was pretty clear that she was about to be abused when she got home. And she basically confirmed it later in another episode when she's like, I had him print out the email and we got into a huge fight, which, and ended up they decided to split up at that, after this point.
But it is sad how it all played out because on their way to the white party, they were in their limo, he was complimenting her. It was almost
fake.
ironic. Oh, of course it was fake, but it was ironic how, a good of a place it seemed like they were in. Of course they weren't. They were in a horrible relationship, but they were going through the counseling and as best they could, and they were so excited for this party, and they were going to have a fun time, and this and that, and then they walk in, and Kyle's bawling because she's such a baby, and was like, I hate to say this, but you can't come in.
Yeah.
She never directly said it. She had a whole squad there with her to say it.
Yeah.
It was really sad, and then they had just flown from Vegas to come to this party, and
left
they had
Vegas
to go back.
early. Yep. It was really, and it was a sad scene because just all around, and with the way that Russell was I really think them confronting him that way and listening to him try to talk his way around it, even after they were gone and they're driving back, and he's still trying to justify it. Yeah. And talk his way through it with Taylor. I mean, it was just it was uncomfortable. I mean, it's really uncomfortable. And the whole time, like I said, all the girls they were like, well, we've never seen it. Every time we see Russell, he's incredibly nice. Well, he's not gonna fucking beat her in front of you.
Kyle, and it's no stranger to this, Kyle and Camille had both said, well, she has no physical marks on her body. So until then, I really can't believe it. And also, Paul and Adrian had said that. It's just horrible. It's like they don't even understand what it is, how it works. And maybe that was a thing in what year?
2011?
2011?
But even then, it doesn't seem, I can't imagine... Horrible. I know we've evolved a little in 12 years, but I can't believe that, by now, I just feel like they completely handled it the 100% wrong way. And a lot of the discussion about the season was well, should it even happen, given that Russell committed suicide and this was a true, domestic abuse situation that was going on, and you're filming a mentally ill woman, They did put her in a lot of, situations that it's why do they need this? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
should she be a part of this right now? She is, I don't know, but through it all, she ended up, I think, becoming my favorite housewife up until that point, just because so much of the story was driven by her. So at least for the first 2 seasons, I think I would say that she ended up becoming my favorite of the housewives.
Yeah, I could argue that as well. And she really seemed like a new person after she decided to leave him, which was before the suicide ever happened.
Right.
She came into a party of Lisa's at Villa Blanca, and her eye was totally messed up from the abuse. And, you know, Kyle's telling her no makeup can cover that up. But she seemed like a new woman. She seemed happy that it was her choice to leave and everything else. And I think things were going great until, you know, the suicide.
Well, and that's another thing. And then that's what also made me feel weird is because, like, they, in the original airing of the season, they aired that, like, 3-minute discussion. They, like, tacked it on at the very beginning of the first episode, discussing that Russell kills himself.
I never saw any sign of it.
I don't think any of us saw any sign of this. And that's why I think it's such a shock, because we all think that we know somebody, and then this horrific thing happens.
I've heard you say so many times, like, you know, I'm so worried, you know, for Taylor, you know, and I'm worried she's going to have a breakdown or something's.
Right.
But we really didn't see Russell.
I mean, well, there's plenty of men that, you know, their wives leave them and they don't kill themselves.
And they were all talking about him so sad. I mean, I know he was their friend to a certain extent, just an acquaintance. And yeah, I mean, any death can be tragic, but Russell Armstrong deserved to die. I mean, domestic abusers don't deserve to live. People who abuse their partner, women or men, do not deserve to draw breath. So, I mean, yeah, like, is suicide awful? Of course. But the way they were talking about it, they're like, oh, this is just so tragic. I can't believe Russell's gone. Like, maybe now he won't hurt the person that he marries 5 years later. I mean, this is a person that broke her jaw, threw her in the bath, bloodied her eyes. Like, one of the article of that photo that I showed you where her eyes all fucked up, they said it was a 4-millimeter depression in her skull. That's hard. That's a hard punch. I mean, or like threw into the wall. I mean, I don't know how you do that to somebody. So no remorse for my end. Russell, you know, I'm glad you're dead. Speaking ill of the dead. And I don't care. The people deserve to be spoken ill of.
At least you're saying it, because the people surrounded by him, the closest, called him a friend on multiple occasions. Friends don't sue friends. How about we think about why he wants to sue her? Because she's saying the truth.
Yeah, exactly.
She's spreading it publicly. He had all these legal issues because he was a businessman. When he killed himself, he left a lot of guilt and shame and stuff he didn't have to deal with, and threw it all on her. It's horrible, the aftermath from it.
She said that he had $700,000 in debt and a $1.5 million lawsuit that she had to now take care of, plus the fact that, I mean, she was trying to divorce him anyway. So now, instead of being a divorcee, she's a widow, so she has to take care of his estate and his will and all of that shit. So it's like, listen, I mean, I'm not one to say, like, oh, suicide is a selfish act, because I know that's controversial to say. But in this instance, it almost, I mean, yes, he was probably very tortured. I mean, to be going through these sorts of things and to be confronted with the fact that, yes, I am an abuser, and now the world knows, and on top of that, I'm being convicted for fraud. I can see, yeah, I mean, he was tortured, but it still was a very selfish act, just considering that, you know, he was leaving his wife, who he was already trying to leave him with all of this to handle, and his young daughter without a father. I mean, it's
horrible.
Yeah, it's horrible.
It's
all
horrible,
around.
and two things, at all of her birthday parties, Kennedy, they would really arrange it. They'd spend a ton of money on these birthday parties, and, you know, he would try to be Father of the Year and present his gift at a certain time. And just the way he talked to Taylor was awful.
Yeah.
Nope, we're doing the gift right now. No, we're doing the cake. And he actually told Dana off at a certain point, which I couldn't believe. So they must have all been a little closer than I thought. But I will say Dana was the one person who believed Taylor before any of the evidence was out. She believed Taylor just from Taylor telling her. And none of the other women did. I just think that's crazy.
Well, Lisa, to a certain extent, but she had to be a little convinced, too. But Lisa was one of the only other ones who said it, too. She's like, well, why would she make that up? Like,
exactly.
You know. But she was the one thing that she said was like, well, if she, like, in front of Taylor at this table of people, she's like, well, if a guy raised his hand to you, how long would you stay? And she, like, you can't just say that to somebody, Lisa. I mean, fuck. But enough about domestic abuse. You know, that's what the whole second season's about. Definitely recommend checking out The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills as we wrap up here. But I figured we could end with a discussion of ranking the 6 housewives.
Sure, let's do it.
So who is your number 6 housewife of Beverly Hills?
My number 6 housewife is Adrienne Maloof.
Yeah, that's a good choice. I chose Camille Grammer as my number 6. No real reason. I mean, listen, by the time we get to season 3, she's demoted to friend of the housewife status.
True.
She's not a housewife anymore. And season 1 was all about her fawning over Kelsey Grammer, who I could give one fuck about. And then their divorce, and then by season 2, she's just kind of a background character. I mean, she's boring enough that they didn't invite her back the next season, you know? So that's why I would put Camille at number 6.
Truly, though, I personally think, although Adrienne's more of a character on the show, I would much rather... Camille's more of a character. Like, her voice is hilarious. The way she talks, I don't know, she cracks me up. But yeah, her time is spent for sure, but still Adrienne is lower.
Yeah, so for number 5, my number 5 would be Adrienne.
And mine would be Camille Grammer.
So, I mean, we're not too far off there. You know, I appreciate that Adrienne brings, you know, some entertainment to the show, more so than Camille, enough to, I guess, be invited back for a 3rd season.
Right.
Number 4...
Mine would be Kim.
I think I'd have to agree with that. Kim Richards. Now, she has provided... At one point, she was my favorite during season 1. Like,
she's hilarious.
She's a funny character. Her mannerisms are weird. The way she speaks is weird. The way she looks is weird. I mean, sorry.
One of her main personality traits is being late to things. She's kind of the Tana Mojo of the group in more ways than one. But I mean, she's older. But, you know, that's the closest thing I can relate it to.
She, you know, she's fallen from grace. You know, she has an alcohol problem, and she admitted on Dr. Phil that she had a pill addiction. So, I mean, she was definitely going through it, but she gave some really interesting content. I mean, the whole fight at Dana's game night was all about Kim and Brandy accusing her of being on crystal meth.
Because she went to the bathroom every 15 minutes, and it
was crazy.
It all came to a peak there. Brandy was...
And the thing is, she probably was going to the bathroom and either drinking or taking pills, but it probably wasn't crystal meth. But I think that's the reason why Kim was so offended by it, is because, like, it was true, you know, to a certain extent. And, you know, Kim stands up and she's like, "Oh, you fucking bitch.
You are a goddamn bitch."
Yeah,
you know
she's
that?
Like pointing at her. And yeah, and I mean, Kim's, you know, it was, for the longest time, like, Kim seemed like the odd one out because she, you know, she's older. She's not as old as Lisa, but she's still, you know, she's just more modest. She has a more modest house, a more, you know, humble background than the others somehow. Because, I mean, she's a child actress, but since then, I mean, I don't know if she's living on residuals of that, but she doesn't have a career.
She had an interesting transformation from season 1 to season 2, though. Season 1, it was like, do something, get out there, have a man, you only care about your kids, you have no life. And then it was like, whoa.
Yeah, then she got a man by season 2, Ken, she'd been apparently dating for a year when she finally breaks the news to Kyle. And he was a strange character. And he really...
He looked like a gay
bull mastiff, yeah. And he really didn't, I mean, he started to control her too. I mean, I didn't really care about that necessarily, but you could tell she wasn't happy. So I'm glad that ended for them. But, you know, they provided some good content too.
They were pretty toxic together, especially at the Hawaii trip.
At the Hawaii trip.
They showed up like 3 planes late, 3 days late, and $1 short, so.
And when they confronted them about it, Kim just was trying to brush it off, and Ken literally said, "We don't care." Like, I mean, it's just...
But they were fighting was the real reason. But the two made up excuses. Just stick to one excuse if you're going to make up an excuse. Originally, she was like, "Oh, I don't have my ID." And then it was, "Oh, he had to work. He only works 1 day a week." It was too much lying, and she always gets caught in her lies. She's a really bad liar, Kim is.
Yeah, she's definitely not good at it. But, you know, it's interesting that she placed so low, because at one point she was one of my favorite housewives, but I guess that speaks more highly of the people above her. Number 3, who would you say?
Then Taylor.
You'd put Taylor at number 3.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I think that's respectable. I mean, especially because, like, outside of the abuse storyline, she doesn't really provide much else.
No, and from what we've seen, she's been kind of nasty.
That too, and
Stuck on the same rumors later on.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for my number 3, I would say Kyle Richards.
Really?
Yeah. Now that seems like a low placement because she's definitely like I think she's the Nene Leakes of the show.
Yeah.
The star, so to speak, I would say the main housewife, the one that carries the action most of the time, or at least drives the story most of the time. But I just think, I already told you my number 1 was Taylor because of the domestic abuse riveting storyline, which means that Lisa Vanderpump is my number 2, just because I think she was just by season 2 a funny character. I mean, I think I really got, by season 1 I could give or take Lisa, but by season 2 I was like, okay, I really get it now. Like, I get why Lisa gets her own spinoff at a certain point.
Right.
I at first I didn't really understand. I'm like, why are people so into Lisa? By the end of season 2, I really got it. She and her husband really provide a lot of comic relief at a lot of these events.
They do. So then my number 2 would be Kyle.
Yeah.
Kyle Richards.
I see. So you think Lisa is your favorite? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes, Lisa would be my number 1. But of course, we've seen more than we're talking about. So maybe if you asked me, I would have said Taylor as well, because Taylor's your number 1.
Yeah.
But yeah, Lisa for sure. I think she brings a lot of comic relief, a lot of humor, a lot of just different tastes because she's European, she's British. But I love her. I love her on her own. I love her with Ken. I love her more on her own.
Yeah.
She can hold her own, and she's really hilarious. But yeah, Lisa's definitely my number 1. I think she's a good friend, for sure.
Yeah. I like them all, and I think that we have some good like side characters with Paul and Mauricio and Ken, Cedric.
Oh God, Cedric.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to like dive into and enjoy. I mean, you could do, if this was 2011, like we could totally do a podcast on every single episode because there's so much jam-packed into them. But what can you say?
Yeah, I mean, you could do a whole series on just the clothes they wear to their dinner parties.
Yeah.
I mean, you could.
You totally could.
Sometimes they all show up in the same color. I mean, a lot of it is about the fashion, and the fact that it's like mid-2000s is awesome.
Right, yeah, it captures a nice time in simpler times, so to speak. Simpler times. Well, folks, that'll do it for our inaugural episode of Content Sluts. I hope you enjoyed. This is not something that will be, a scheduled release. We're busy people. I operate and edit every episode of Motaif, Moataif, podcast. So that takes up a lot of my time, plus working. And you're in grad school, of course. So these are more. I think that's why we're going more with whole seasons of conversation instead of just one episode here or there. So next time you tune in, who knows what we'll be discussing?
When you talk about glass ceilings.
Yes, the Dropout on Hulu. Once that wraps up the miniseries, that'll probably be our next episode. But until then, folks, stay slutty. And keep watching that content.
All right. Peace out.
You people don't do anything.